For our next window, I think there are actually three possibilities for who might be depicted there. Some members of our parish congregation have told me that they think this is St. Catherine of Siena. St. Catherine of Siena died in 1380. She was the youngest of 25 children, even from an early age, had mystical experiences, and she resisted efforts to marry. She devoted a lot of time to prayer and fasting. When she was just 16 years old, she became a third order Dominican, and she was known to have had visions of Christ and Mary and the saints. She spent a lot of time caring for the ill, and in the year 1375, she received the stigmata, the wounds of Christ. Now, they were invisible, but she felt them. After her death, they became visible. She's very famous for meeting with the Pope at Avignon, France, in the year 1376. At that time, the Pope was residing in France and not in Rome. In the midst of that meeting, she convinced the Pope to return to Rome, to be the man that God had called him to be, to lead the church faithfully from Rome. She was canonized as saint in the year 1461. She's often depicted in a dark religious habit, white and either blue or black, which would reflect being a third order Dominican. And she's often seen holding a cross or a crucifix and with having a crown of thorns around her head, representing the stigmata. Another possibility for our saint in this window is Saint Rose of Lima. She died in the year 1586. Her given name was Isabel de Santa Maria de Flores. She was from Lima, Peru. She took the name Rose at confirmation. She was also noted for her beauty. She also resisted parents' attempts to have her marry. She actually took St. Catherine of Siena, our first option of our saint, as a model of her faith. She also became a third order Dominican. She spent a lot of time living alone, taking care of a garden, and that garden became a great spiritual center. She was known to have many mystical experiences and visions. She was canonized a saint in the year 1671, and she also is often depicted in a white and black or blue religious habit, reflecting being a third order Dominican. She'll be seen holding a cross or a crucifix and then also have a crown, typically of roses, hearkening back to her name. A third option for who our saint could be is Saint Rita of Cascia. Saint Rita of Cascia died in the year 1457. She was an Italian woman. She was married at a very young age to a very difficult man. She endured some lack of faithfulness and a lack of love from her husband, who in time was murdered by another feuding family. Now, typical at that time would have been the vendetta, the revenge, and her sons were attempting to avenge their father's death. She interceded and convinced them not to. She was a great witness for forgiveness. There are many miracles attributed to her intercession. She's often depicted with a bleeding wound on her forehead because of also receiving the wound of the crown of thorns from the stigmata. She's often depicted as well in a white and brown or white and dark habit. Later in life, she became an Augustinian nun, and so that's their habit. She's also seen depicted with roses, sometimes holding them, or a crown of roses. And that harkens to a story from the end of her life. She had asked for a rose from the garden, and at the time it was January, not the time when roses would be in bloom. And yet, when they went out to look, they found a rose growing there. St. Rita is known as a patroness for difficult or impossible causes because of her marriage background and what happened afterward to her husband. One of the reasons I think that our depiction here in the church might be St. Rita of Cascia is that she was canonized a saint on May 24th in the year 1900 by Pope Leo XIII. Since our church cornerstone was in 1901, she would have been a very brand new saint. She would have been freshly on the saint roster. And it makes sense that in building a new church, they might have been looking for a good patron who was freshly canonized a saint. In any case, all three of these women are great models of faithfulness, of prayer, of fidelity to the Lord. Each of them in their own way are great witnesses to what it means to have Jesus at the center of our hearts and to live life in him every day.